by Carlington Community Association and Carlington Community Health Center. On Thursday, October 16th, 2014, at St. Nicholas Adult High School, the CCA and the CCHC joined together and hosted the Rue Awards only live debate for your candidates for councillor. The participants for the night were Riley Brockington, Barbara Carroll, Don Francis, Jeff Kostick, Michael Kostick, Mike Patton, and Vanessa Sutton. And our special moderator for the night, Joanne Chianello from the Ottawa Citizen. And now we go live to the debate.
Welcome, everyone. It's a full house. Thanks so much for coming to the only all candidates debate for award number 16. Thanks also to the 8 candidates who are in attendance tonight to answer your questions. Thanks for coming. My name is Cameron Ketchum. I'm both the Vice President of the Carlington Community Association as well as a board member at the Carlington Community Health Center, which are our co-hosts for this evening, thus making me usually qualified to make this pitch right now. We just wanted to draw your attention to both of these organizations, the Carlington Community Association, very active in our community, and we would like to expand our membership, expand our volunteer base, and expand the number of people who get the information directly from us. So please visit us at carlingtoncommunity.org, as well as our Twitter handle at carlingtonca. We've got, I think, pieces of paper along with the handouts to direct you to both of those places. Please join us there. The Carlington Community Health Center is right in the corner of Mirabel and Coolidge. For those that don't know, one of the driving forces in community programming in our area, targeting mental health, targeting neonatal care, primary health care, as well as a number of social programs throughout our area. They're wonderful. Do support them, do visit them, and do check out the website as well. Just a quick note also, CDC Talks has been going ward to ward throughout this election. They'll be in our ward on October 20th at Moody Stadium at the Terry Fox Athletic Facility. If you'd like to participate and offer some feedback to the CDC Talks tour, join them between 10 and 11. We'll post that on our website as well. It's a good opportunity to offer further feedback on top of this evening and other ways as well. I don't want to take too long. We've got a packed schedule as well as a packed house. I know you want to hear from the candidates most of all, so we'll get moving. Last but not least, I want to welcome, for a warm welcome to Joanne Chianello from the Ottawa Citizen, the City Affairs columnist there. She's going to be our moderator for the evening. We're very lucky to have her, we're very excited to have her, and she's going to take the floor from here and explain the format and the business.
Thank you so much for coming. It is great to see all of you because the democracy takes a little bit of effort, so it's fantastic you guys came. And thank you to the Carlington Community Association for putting that on. You're all volunteers, doing this in our spare time, so that's fantastic. Thank you guys very much. And the candidates. Thank you, candidates, for putting your names forward and coming tonight. It's also going to be great to hear from you, of course. So here is how this is going to work. The debate portion is based on questions that have been submitted from community members and community-based organizations. So the Carlington Community Association and the Carlington Community Health Center have reached out through Twitter, through email, all over the place to get these questions and sort of seeing what the biggest issues are. We have about 7 questions that we're going to ask all of these candidates to answer, and there are 80 or 7. Oh, everyone's here? Yes. Oh, no. Okay, 7. We might get then to some audience questions if we have time. So what we're going to do then is every candidate each have 2 minutes to give your opening statement. It's up to you if you want to stand up if you like, or talk from your seat. So it's up to you. 2 minutes, and we're going to be very, very tough with the time. A lot of candidates here. We have a lot of questions we want to get to. So we're going to cut you off. You're going to look at the timer down to your right. She's going to give you the 15-minute paragraph or the 15-second warning, as well as the timeout sign. We're going to be very strict about that. Oh, thank you. All right. So after 2-minute opening statement, we're going to ask questions. Everyone will have a chance to answer that question. Your answer will be 1 minute. Now, to avoid it just being a question and answer period, to have it be a bit of a debate, each candidate has a challenge card. Thank you, Mike. You've been on Price is Right before, we have a everyone has 3. And so what happens is, you answer a question, you hear somebody else answer it, but you want to challenge that, or you want to, say something additional. Put your card up. You can either, everybody answer, and then put your card up, or you can put your card up in the middle. If you do that, you really have to wait, especially Rodney and down there, Carol, and John, really wait so I can see you from over there. So we're going to mix it up a bit. It'll be good. Here we go. And then at the end, again, if we have time, we're going to take questions from the audience, and at the end, everyone will have 1 minute to make their closing statements. All right, enough of the rules. Also, crazily, the Community Association has given me the power to ask for more details, more specifics from your answers. So I get to interject now and again, so you have to ask for it. All right, we're going to start with the opening statements. We're going to start on down on our right. We'll start with Riley and move our way forward. All right, that's easy. So Riley Rock.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Riley Rockington, and I'm asking for your support to send me to City Hall as your next City Councillor. I'm 38 years old, and I'm raising my family in the East Bay neighborhood. I lived in River Ward my entire life. I'm a proud graduate of our local public schools, and I went to the University of Ottawa where I obtained my degree in economics with a strong background in accounting and business management. After a brief stint in the Canadian Army Reserve, I accepted full-time work in Statistics Canada, where I've worked for the last 15 years, currently as an economist. Over the last 20 years, I've been heavily involved in the community. I firmly believe I have an obligation to serve and to volunteer, and I've been heavily involved with 3 different community associations. Currently, as well, with Meals on Wheels, the Ottawa Art Institute Telethon, and the Ottawa Theatre. In 2003, I successfully ran for River Ward as your public school board trustee and re-elected in 2006. I served as vice chair of the board for 2 years and 4 years as the budget committee chairman. And under my leadership, we had 4 years of balanced budgets. I also served all school boards in Ontario when I was elected the vice president of the Ontario School Boards Association. I believe we need to control spending at City Hall and deliver core services. I believe we need to slow speeding vehicles down on our residential streets. We need to have smart development that matches the community look and feel. We need to address crime, safe, vibrant, and progressive communities. I will work with you on the issues. I will listen. I will be active, and I will be accessible. My name is Riley Rockington. Please send me to City Hall. Thank you.
Now we have Barbara Carroll.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Barbara Carroll, and I'm running to be your councillor for River Ward. Elections at the local level are about your everyday life. It's about the roads you travel on. It's about the communities that you live in. It's how safe you feel and how safe you feel for your children. It's about the changes that you would like to see at City Hall that reflect your vision and your reality. I have been in this community for over 20 years, and I will say that I have had a positive impact. I didn't do that alone. I had to reach into every corner of River Ward to get people people to help me and to partner in ways that would make a difference in people's lives. I want a ward that is strong in all of its parts. I want a ward that can respond to some of the serious needs that we have in the community. It is a beautiful ward. It is a long and big and diverse ward. And you need someone at City Hall who understands people and who will always be listening to what you have to say. I put people first, always. I intend to work smartly, efficiently, and effectively as your councillor at City Hall. Thank you.
Thank you. And now we have John Francis.
Good evening. Well, my name is John Francis. I've actually lived in the ward for 9 years, although only the last 4 in Carlington Heights. I actually started off in the 70s in one of the Women's Bay area. We, Adele and I had our first house, and that's where our children were born. At the time, Adele was teaching at Fielding Grammar School. I was teaching at Ottawa College. For a number of years, 13 as a matter of fact, 6 elections, I did serve as a trustee on the Ottawa Board of Education. And I'm surprised some people still remember that. There used to be an Ottawa Board of Education before everything got amalgamated. And one of the things that's different from that time and now, of course, is the school board and taxing authority. It doesn't now. And simply because it did have that taxing authority, and did have responsibility directly to the taxpayers, I feel much more ready to deal with costs, budgets, and expenses at City Hall. The numbers are different, but the skill set is the same. In political life, some of you, in fact, I'm surprised some of you remember that I was the candidate of the New Democratic Party in 1971. That's not very long ago. And I worked actively with the party for 25 years. And that was a great learning experience. Sometimes you learn too much, and you have to take it to other levels. And that meant I ended up in the Green Party for the election of 1993, where I didn't run here in the Ottawa area because I had national responsibilities. I ran in Calgary West, not because I thought I could win there, but because there were important election issues that I wanted to address.
Thank you, John.
Oh, well, it's been a pleasure.
I know it's a lot to ask candidates, but you have a little 15-second time. If you want to glance over there, somebody's waving the card at you. We will hear more from John as the interview there. Thank you very much. Next we have Jeff Foster. Go, Jeff.
Hello, Riverward. My name is Jeff Foster. I'm running the next city councillor for Riverward. I'm 25 years old, a graduate of Carleton University, and I live across from Mooney's Bay in Riverview Gardens with my beautiful and supportive spouse, Vicky. Being young, I have the privilege of bringing forward a fresh, new perspective, so we don't end up with the costly mistakes of our past. I stand for fiscal responsibility, creating meaningful environmental change, and making Ottawa a city of innovation. Fiscal responsibility means I will support balanced budgets, reasonable taxes, and projects that can be accomplished within a reasonable budget and within a reasonable time frame. Creating meaningful environmental change means I will advocate the creation of an environmental action plan to clean the Rideau River, increase our tree coverage, increase cycling infrastructure, and invest in renewable energy. Ottawa is a great city, but we can make it better. That is why I propose to make Ottawa a city of innovation. By coming with new solutions to common issues and investing in new technologies, for example, solar roadways, we can make Ottawa a city of the future rather than a city of the past. To me, being a city councillor is not just about bringing forward my ideas and my concerns. It's about listening to you, the residents of the River Ward. That is why I've created Build a Platform. Build a Platform is about collecting the ideas and concerns from you, the residents, so that together as one, we have a platform to take to City Hall that shows the River Ward agenda. I started running for City Council back in May, before the incumbent retired. because I know that I can be the next great councillor for the River Ward.
15 seconds.
I am running because I also want to help others, and I believe public service, and especially the role of city councillor, to be very rewarding. As your city councillor, I will be a strong, rational, and inclusive voice. I wish my fellow candidates the best of luck, but in the end, vote for me.
Nameplate there. Thank you. Next we have Michael Costume.
That's correct. Hello, my name is Michael Costume. That's spelled Kostiuk. I have lived in Carlington since 1957. I was born in the Grace Hospital, and both my parents worked at the City Hospital. I was the president of the Carlington Community Association for 3 years. I have a master's degree in geography. I'm a teacher, and I also do occasional international election monitoring. My platform is based on improving city governance. To improve the running of our city, we should adopt an ISO system of management where all tasks are documented and everyone is held accountable for their jobs. Ottawa needs zero-based budgeting. All expenses must be justified for each new period. Zero-based budgeting starts from zero base, and every function within an organization is analyzed for its needs and costs. Ottawa must use demographics in its planning. We must have a sound and proven business case for any project that we build. Ottawa needs a real transit grid that covers the entire region. Transit must take people where they need to go, when they need to go. Our light rail project focuses too much on a small downtown, where only 20% of the people work. Garbage collection has become an issue this election, with many people wanting a return to weekly garbage collection, but also with many people who are in favor of the green bin. I will consult the River Ward residents on what they want in this topic. We need to find a common ground where all residents are satisfied. And Carlington as a community has been ignored and bypassed for too many years. We need something such as a neighborhood planning initiative, a Main Street environment for Melbourne Road, and a library for Carlington. So on October 27th, please vote for me. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Mike Patton, and it's so nice to see so many familiar faces here this evening. If I haven't had a chance to knock on your door over the last couple of weeks, I hope to within the next week. I've spoken to so many of you, and I'd like to speak to the rest. So if you can just stay home for the next week, I find that so helpful. And it's important to do that. It's important to get around and to speak to you because this is a job interview. What you're taking part in is part of a big community job interview, where you're going to be giving one of us a very important job for the next 4 years. And I'm thrilled to see so many people out this evening. This is very much, I have to give credit to the Community Association. Our Community Association is one of the best organized in the city. It is so difficult to get people out to these sorts of events. You have no idea, they've done a fantastic job. So we're going to be all answering a lot of questions over the course of the evening. If there's anything that you're looking for from me that you don't get a chance to hear during the course of the evening, feel free to speak to me afterwards. Go to my website, mikepatten.ca, get a hold of me that way. I'd be more than happy to answer all of your questions. And I look forward to hearing what goes on the rest of the evening. Thank you.
Okay, I've lived in River Ward since 2004. I'm committed to serving this community because I love it. I have 24 years of local management experience, having served as a chief administrative officer and statutory treasurer in 2 cities. Most recently, I was the chief administrative officer at the Faculty of Medicine at the University of Ottawa. I successfully managed a multi-million-dollar operating budget. And while there, I was instrumental in bringing several building projects in on time and on budget. I'm a fiscal conservative with progressive liberal values in relation to social issues. As a fiscal conservative, I will ensure that the projects we embark on are financially feasible for the city and its taxpayers. My background as a professional accountant allows me to understand the complexities of municipal finances. As someone with progressive liberal values, I strongly believe that resolving social issues, such as housing and community health, will benefit the entire community. I have witnessed many of these problems firsthand during my volunteer work at the Mayport Hospice and St. Pat's Nursing Home. As an elected representative, I will listen to your concerns and work tirelessly to resolve emergent and long-standing issues, including traffic congestion along Riverside Drive, Prince of Wales, and Hunt Club Road, inadequate transit access from our community to all areas of Ottawa, and the need for heightened community policing in our ward in a responsive, authentic, and consultative manner. On October 27th, please vote for the new society. Thank you.
Thank you, candidates. Very nice to meet you all. We're going to start with our first question on intensification. Carlington is entering a period of increasing residential development and intensification. What can we learn from similar experiences in other parts of the city, and how will you help homeowners and the community negotiate this new reality? We're going to start with Carol. Oh, actually, we can start with Barbara Carol. We're not going to call people by their last name, so. Barbara.
I think when we talk intensification, we have to recognize it has pros and it has cons. It's really good to get things back into the city because that's where we can grow our tax base. We have a city sprawl and we're putting a great deal of money into building and development that is outside of the core of Ottawa. That costs us a great deal of money in services. The only thing then, if we're going to look at intensification, is we have to understand what that does in your lives and in my lives. This is about what's going up next to you down the road. This is what's going to be about the height of an apartment building that might be put in. 15 seconds. We cannot do intensification if we do not pay attention to neighborhood values and neighborhood characteristics. Thank you.
It's 1 minute and it's 1 minute and it does come quickly. Riley, do you want? Did you have something?
Just for clarification, are you asking and then you go down?
Well, yeah, we're going to go down the line. We're going to start with the person each time, and everyone, you do not have to answer every question. I would not suggest that at the debate, but it's up to you. So the next person is Dick. Don, okay, I was terrible moderator. Don Francis, there we go.
I actually did an intensification project off Fisher Avenue. Once there was one house, there are now 8. And I must say that it was very, very well designed. It's an excellent kind of project. They don't all meet that standard. And that's, of course, what we have to look at when we look at new intensification projects across the city.
What do you mean by meet a standard?
Well, I know that there's one proposal on Fielding Drive, for example, where there has been a vacant lot. I think there was a house that burned down or destroyed. In any event, that one house is now scheduled to become, I don't know, 8 or 9 houses. But it's clearly got a detrimental effect on the streetscape. 4? Okay, glad to be correct.
All right.
But I know that there's a problem with streetscape.
All right. Jeff?
I think it'd be great if we start having more focus on actually holding the developer companies accountable to where they're actually developing. I'm sure a lot of people know around Central Park Drive, the areas are unfinished and the developers figure the plans along the way. So instead of just focusing on intensification, you need to focus and hold the developers accountable for the areas that are under construction.
Intensification should be based on the demographic need of the city. Right now, a lot of the intensification happens before the city are high-rise condos, and those are maximum 2-bedroom units. Yeah, we're in a baby boom right now, where families are looking for 3- and 4-bedroom units. And because of that, if they want a house of that size, they're forced to go outside the window, places like Canada, Barhaven, and Orleans. So intensification targets are fine, but they must match the needs of people, and not necessarily those of the investors.
But isn't a lot of the intensification happening in River Ward, in infill housing? Those are family homes. How is that going to be managed?
Yeah, you are correct about that. In fact, Carlington actually always did have a high level of intensification because when we were built after World War II, just south of Shelton, it was a very dense city as well, I mean, a dense neighborhood area, as well as the area on top of the reservoir. But I think it's important to retain supply of affordable housing for families as well too. So it may be retained.
Thank you. Mike.
I'm an enormous fan of intensification, especially if it's in somebody else's neighborhood. My opinion on intensification has really changed over the last few years. I was very fortunate to work with Councillor Rick Shirelli in his office for a number of years, and one of the things that we did that will always stick with me was a major planning project around the Center Point area. And there was an awful lot of vacant land in this area that was looking to be developed, and Rick managed to bring all the stakeholders together, the homeowners, business people, and institutional people, and really put together a plan that satisfied most of the concerns of most of the different groups. I didn't believe it was possible, but it certainly is. If we as a community don't plan what the future is going to look like, others will plan it for us, and we'll be stuck with the results. The next council, one of the most important jobs, is going to be to put together a community plan, especially around this area of Carlington.
Thank you. Vanessa.
Well, I think intensification is a fantastic opportunity to work with the development community. You can get amenities when you do densification and you allow for additional rezoning. Through Section 37 of the Ontario Planning Act, you can actually ask the developer to do cash for affordable housing, or you could probably have them build it for you at little or no cost. We need to look at vulnerable communities, the elderly, the disabled. These would be areas where we could move very quickly through a gentrification along the Maryville Road area and intensification of zoning density.
Vanessa, Section 37 only comes into effect if you're asking to build a development that's 25% or more of the zone densification. Would you support something that intense?
Yes, I would, because we have 10,000 people waiting to get into affordable housing, and we have an aging population, and we don't have the capacity in our budget to fund it all. So we have to work with the development community to tackle a very, very large challenge.
And Riley.
Development must match the local flavor of the community. You can't put a 12-story high-rise on a lot where one house used to sit. You have to work with the community and review the issues that they bring to the attention, whether it be traffic or height restrictions or other. We don't want to increase urban sprawl. We don't want to keep building and building outside of the development. We have opportunities within communities to support the infill development. And quite frankly, there's tax revenue to be realized as well. There are empty lots, not just private lots, but lots that the city owns that could be developed and bring in. Can also have a good opportunity to raise property values for current neighbors. If you have smart building, middle class or upper middle class homes that are being built, it could have positive ramifications as well in the community. So it has to be smart development that communities find as well.
Thank you, perfect. All right, I'm going to actually skip ahead because there's a related question. We talked a little bit about residential development. Our next question on commercial development. The City Planning Department has recently proposed that parts of Maryville Road and Carling Avenue in our neighborhood be rezoned to prioritize commercial, retail, and office uses in the case of Maryville, and arterial function in the case of Carling. This will align with the official plan already adopted by the city. What would be your vision for these areas, and how do you ensure future commercial development on our main thoroughfares is appropriate and beneficial to the community? So this time we're going to start with John.
Well, it's an issue that requires lots of consultation. I'm certainly not going to stand here and proclaim that this should happen or that should happen. We will need more commercial space, there's no questions about that. It has to be appropriate to the community and what it is. Obviously, the main streets are important. And it might well be done in conjunction with whatever happens to light rail transit. That is a factor in servicing the commercial areas.
Thank you. Jeff.
I think it'd be great if we actually start redeveloping Maryville into areas such as restaurants or retail stores to help increase the house values. Across Carling, the houses over there are worth $200,000 more compared to what they are on the other side of the island. So it'd be great to develop those areas into something that's more beneficial for residents. I also think it'd be great if we actually started enforcing our contracts with the actual developers, then hold them accountable. There's been a lot of cases around our houses there for apartment bridge, cases like that. The company gets away with us who's building a bridge 3 times. That shouldn't happen. The city council would step up and take accountability.
How is the company getting away with it here being sued by the city?
So what's
The company in the bridge is being sued by the city, so are they getting away with getting that? What do you mean by that?
Well, the fact that it still had to be built 3 times and that the mistakes weren't caught earlier, I think that's a huge fault. And then
Are they supposed to be managing the bridge building itself, or is it a building? So what would you do, I guess, is my question.
I think it's very important for a council to actually be responsible for what's going on in our ward, rather than just forget about it and blame it on someone else.
Michael?
I actually favor turning River Road into a traditional main street with widened sidewalks and, like because Carlington, for example, really lacks a heart. And I think having a traditional main street railroad would actually be very beneficial. All day parking, let's divert some of the traffic that goes through Maryville somewhere else. But at the same time, you have to understand that those houses that are in the housing area, they're built on a series of crescent streets. That's not a good pattern of streets. So if you're going to start to redevelop Carlington and part of Maryville, the lot size isn't actually, in many cases, advantageous to putting up residential buildings. And if you were to do that, you'd find that those residences on the interior, but suddenly in the backyard, it's the back of the building.
Michael's question is about commercial development on these streets.
Yeah, so I'm saying how it would affect the residents behind, and perhaps in a negative way, because it doesn't match the streetscape inside the community. So it's a tricky architectural sort of exercise I think we have to involve in.
Thank you. Mike?
Certainly what I've heard from speaking to people in the community is there's a great desire to see Maryville to be more than it is. Maybe I'm kind of a snob, but I look at what's happening in Westboro, specifically along Richmond Road, where it's just become a canyon of condos and commercial development, and that's not what I think we really want to see along Maryville when we talk about development. And again, I can't stress enough that the community that fails to plan, plans to fail. That if we don't bring the stakeholders together, and we don't do a long-term plan, then we're going to be stuck with whatever the developers decide. And while the councillor may protest and jump up and down a little bit, it's very much going to be catch as catch can. However, if you bring all the stakeholders in early, you can really change the outcome. And that's what I advocate very strongly, and certainly that's what I'm hearing from the community.
Vanessa?
Again, I think commercialization is an opportunity for the Maryville area. Absolutely, there has to be consultation, there needs to be focus group discussions. I think that you have to work with your natural strengths in the community, you have a lot of cultural diversity. You could have almost, the restaurants of every part of the world represented on Maryville Road. You could attract people from across the city. You could really, really reorient everything about Maryville and make it a very vibrant, multicultural epicenter. I do think it's very important to look at the Hintonburg area and see if there's anything in there that the community really does enjoy. Because you see a lot of cultural diversity, you are seeing some height, and I think it's just an opportunity. It's an opportunity to engage the community and to build a better future.
Thank you. Riley?
The concept of a Main Street look and feel for Maryville is certainly appealing to me, but there hasn't been extensive community consultation. Maybe we think what's best, but really the community should be driving this. I don't support commercial encroachment in residential areas. I think commercial enterprises should be on the commercial strip. I think there are a lot of issues with respect to crime in the area that we need to tackle as well if we want to attract the right commercial enterprises for our neighborhood. There are prostitution issues, there are drug dealing issues that we need to fight. But also we need businesses to come to Carlington that local residents will actually need and want and will shop at. There are some businesses that have brought to my attention that the community really does not want, does not feel, and are actually part of the problem. So this requires an extensive consultation. I might have an idea what I think is best for Maryville, but it's really a community decision that we need to work together on.
Thank you. And finally, Barbara.
Hi. When we're talking about commercial development, I think we have to really take into consideration what it is that you want to have as an experience, as an area that is close to you every day, is being redeveloped. Commercial development brings services to residents. On the downside, if you can't travel safely in those areas, if you can't even access because of the way that we have decimated buses in the area and the way that we are not creating safe cycling paths, then maybe we're just creating something that won't be of great value to people who live here. And I think we need to tread very carefully, but we do need to move ahead.
All right, thank you. Any rebuttals? None. Everyone's being so polite tonight so far. All right. So now we're moving on to social issues. Statistics show that many youth in Carlington face significant challenges completing school and developing core skills, accessing positive and effective community resources. Disenfranchised youth are always in danger of being steered toward crime and violence, which are serious concerns in our community. What proactive efforts would you make to strengthen the social programs and community safety initiatives in this area? We're going to start with Jeff.
I think it's a very important issue. As someone who's very close to the youth, I can see the value in...
I hope you're not a disenfranchised youth.
I can see the value in having all the after school activities that promote you to do leadership, inspire you to do things such as run for city council, or have after-school programs that encourage you to do sports. It was also pointed out to me the other day at the last Kennedy meeting that there's actually no library in the board. I think that's a huge fault on our part. I think it'd be great to see one in our area.
Great, thank you. Michael.
I'm just going to follow up that as well. 4 years ago, I went to a seminar on gangs, and I think it was Mike Chowder, one of the speakers. He basically stated that studies have shown that if young people don't have anything meaningful to do between the hours when school ends and supper begins in the evening, that's the time when gangs seem to really attract them. So again, bringing up in the library, being a teacher, I think Carlington really developing a library, a resource center for young people to get together, because especially a lot of the newer immigrants who live in low-income housing, it's very cramped places, you have a larger family, and sometimes it's really difficult just to have a place to sit down and do some study. And a library resource center will go a long way to help that. And if the city of Ottawa doesn't actually fund that, I would actually seek private funding for that. For example, the Gates Foundation, Linda Gates, promoting libraries around the world. And the fact that the demographic shows that we have the need for it, will really help.
Thank you. Mike?
This is a great question, and you should be aware that there's a huge problem in the ward, in pockets with gang activity and gang involvement. So we're not talking about ward kids, we're talking about kids who are feeling disenfranchised and being drawn towards gangs. Also, the flip side that I've been hearing from the community of this, the same coin, is from the Muslim community that a lot of the same factors that lead young people towards gangs also lead towards radicalization, Islamic radicalization. So certainly programming is part of the answer, and a major part of the answer that the city can be more involved in association with the school boards. But also one of my pet peeves is if you have a young person in your life who comes to you with a substance abuse problem and they're looking for treatment, it's very difficult to get treatment for them. That's something that the city should really take ownership of and do something about it together.
Okay, I think that it's kind of addressing two issues at the same time. I think the Ottawa gang strategies, there's a roadmap for action for 2013 to 2015. And there's four major initiatives. They want to build resilient children, families, and communities through positive relationships in gang-related neighborhoods. Take inclusive and preventative approaches to social development, and that could be the Boys and Girls Club, that could be enhanced library access. Situational measures, education, awareness, and community policing really needs to be enhanced. And identify intervention opportunities for children, youth, and adults, including those at risk, on the edge of joining a gang or leading a gang for life. We have to do interventions for younger people in the same family. We have to get them out of there so that they don't choose that path. And once incarcerated, if that is the end of the day, when they come out, we need to remediate.
Vanessa, you said that you would want to intervene to get those kids, and how would you do that? Could you give us an example?
Yes, the Boys and Girls Club operates in 9 different schools in the city of Ottawa right now. They run a very, through volunteer initiative, they run a homework club, they run a music club, there's athletics, the police service is heavily involved. They're just making a tremendous difference in the lives of children that age, and that needs to happen here.
Riley?
I can't stress enough how important it is to be proactive and be preventative, because it will save us a lot of time and effort in the long run if we can get the city and school boards to continue the partnerships that exist, go right into the schools and say, what services at the city level can we provide? What have you identified with your at-risk students needs to be addressed? How can we, the city, help you? We need to improve our recreational programming in the communities. We need to ask the kids of the community, what are the issues? How can we help you? And we shouldn't be going to the youth of this neighborhood and say, we have all the solutions to the problem. We should actually be listening and asking them, what are the issues? How can we help? I want to encourage businesses in the area to hire local kids, and I want to have the city of Ottawa host job fairs in communities where youth unemployment is high to get them engaged and to get them hired, working in the community, having pride in the community.
Thank you.
Ever. Let me stand up for the youth and children who live in River Ward, because you have some magnificent youth and you have some magnificent children in this area. We need to encourage them. I employ youth in the summer. I figure out ways to make junior high kids, summer camps after 12 years of age, go to the junior high school. I figure something out about that. I have worked relentlessly to make sure that kids have access to computers. We don't have libraries. It's an absolute pride and shame in this world. We need to do more. Busy kids, kids who are valued, will respond to that. And I think we need to invest a lot more energy and a lot more time at the city level and at the local level to make sure that we are connecting with kids in ways that are meaningful for them. Thank you.
Thank you, Barbara. We have our first vote going to the end, or we do? All right, go, please, Don.
It might be 4 or 5 years ago, I remember attending a conference here locally, which was organized by the police in a variety of social groups. And one of the things that became very clear then was that the reason we have a drug problem is because it's a high-paying job, one that is not available to so many, well, simply not available to many of the other young people who find getting a job difficult. So I salute what has been done by the gangs and crime group to focus attention on that problem. And I know that we have to resolve some of the issues which can't be done entirely municipally because there are other levels of government involved. But in terms of jobs for youth, I'm ready to hire any youth who wants to work on my campaign, and I'm prepared to pay them a decent salary.
Really? I have to ask you what that salary is, but did you have a rebuttal? Mike Patrick, 1 minute.
Very good, thank you. And let me make this really clear. We're not talking, when it comes to this issue, we're not talking about youth generally across the community. Most young people are not at risk. And let me give a special shout out, partially because they're organizing this in the Carlington Community Health Center and the work that they're doing with at-risk communities. We're talking about specifically targeted programs to those very small communities and those small groups of young people that are at most risk. If you're just a average middle class kid who's kind of bored, I'm not talking about them. We're talking about those individuals that are really susceptible because of where they live or the situation that they're in, that are very susceptible to gang acquisition or getting involved in really serious problems. So this is what we need is very focused programs on this, and just general programs across the board.
All right, Jeff also has a rebuttal.
I'd just like to direct this to Riley. I've actually been speaking to some residents who've actually been blocked from your Twitter account and have actually been neglected in responses to emails they've sent to you. So I'm wondering, how do you can say you're going to do so much consultation when you have clearly neglected some residents.
I'm not aware, certainly every email that I am receiving, I'm replying to. We as candidates are receiving a huge number of email that we're trying to get to when you're door knocking 12 hours a day. It's you come home and you want a cup of tea and you're trying to answer email. But there's certainly no email I am not responding to, and I'm not aware of anyone who's been unable to send me anything on Twitter. So if you folks want to talk after, I'm certainly not blocking anyone, and I welcome anyone to either email me, call, send Twitter. So this is the first time I'm hearing this.
All right, good trend now. All right, Barbara, 1 minute.
I'm afraid I'm going to have to second that because I'm blocked. So, yes. So, I'm just echoing what Jeff is saying. I think that we want a councillor who is going to pay attention to you. It's not happening.
All right. We're going to get back to the issue now. This is a little bit off topic, but all right, we're going to social housing.
I don't know. I'm not that good at Twitter.
Carlington is home to a large number of social housing units.
Why?
How we balance the need to improve the conditions of current social housing with the need and demand to construct more units. And we're going to start with Michael.
Well, I noticed already in Carlington that some of the low-income housing is actually for sale now. So what I think of that helps bring in people who actually clean houses very well. And what it does is it creates sort of a benefit community because those people who buy houses can't live there much longer. And so which I think has been something that's been lacking in Carlington. So I think that community feel. And so we do need a mix between the need for low-income housing plus people who want to live there on a long-term basis.
Well, certainly, the public housing owned by the city of Ottawa has just been allowed to deteriorate into an absolutely abominable level. I don't know if you followed the story earlier this summer. I think there was a 6-story building with a number of handicapped people where they only lived for several weeks. There's been a number of issues. If you've ever had an opportunity to tour the public housing, it's really not a great place to live. Both the structures have been allowed to decay, and there's insects, and there's violence, and there's all sorts of problems. I am not in favor of building any more community housing until such time as the existing stock is brought up to level. I'm a big believer that creating ghettos is not a good idea for anybody, and I'm much more in favor of giving people portable rent subsidies and allowing them to choose where they want to live.
Well, we have a lot of housing that is in a state of disrepair. The most recent report I just checked with the Housing Corporation, we need $146 million to bring all of the housing up to grade. So having an additional $2 million a year is really not going to make a huge dent in the problem that we're facing. So I think that we have to be very creative. I think it's time that we had community consultations. We have to rethink the whole Bellevue development. It's been there since 1970. We need to look at it with a fresh set of eyes. We need to identify what works in that facility and what is not working in that facility for the community. And then we need to redesign and maybe work with the development community to have it retrofit or rebuild.
Vanessa, a huge fan of community consultation, that's not gonna find us hundreds of millions of dollars. How are we gonna build those and upgrade those units?
I think the only way to do it is work with the development community. You could do some work with the nonprofit groups and the churches, but they were probably unable to bring forward the money that we need. There's going to be a federal election in 2015. I really think that this is one of the primary issues that needs to be addressed. It is inexcusable in a city that is the nation's capital that there are 10,000 people waiting to get into housing for 5 years. And the people that are living in housing, it's in a total state of disrepair. I think that's disgraceful.
Mike, you have about 1 minute.
And I'll just jump in now just to say going to the end. One of the concrete solutions, it's a huge problem. Where does the money come from to fix the existing stock? One of the tangible solutions that's been been brought forward is to look at the location of some of the existing housing stock. Some of it is so close to beyond repair, it's ridiculous, and it's sitting on very valuable real estate. You can move the development, purchase real estate within a few miles or fairly close by at a much lower rate, sell the existing stock, it's on very expensive real estate, tear it down, use the money to build a new facility, and that would give you a higher quality product, fairly close to the previous place, and it would pay for itself.
Thank you. Riley, your thoughts on balancing how to improve the existing social housing and how to create more units?
It's a very difficult question with no clear solution. I totally agree with Vanessa's last comment about it. It is shameful that in Ottawa we have this problem, but this requires a long-term strategy. This is not something that we can solve here tonight. The backlog to get in is long, 6 years, and as Vanessa said, $2 million, we won't even see that difference. City Council needs to hold the Ottawa community housing accountable for what they are responsible for. Council needs to get a complete report card, frequent report card, a condition index of the entire stock across the city, and what the timelines are for various things to be fixed. But we need provincial dollars, not just federal dollars, but provincial dollars where there can be. And council can also demand a full-scale audit of how Ottawa community housing is looking after this portfolio.
Riley, I'm going to jump in here. Often we talk about, yes, we need help from other levels of government, hard to find. How do you do that?
We beg, we meet with our counterparts, we stress how important this issue is, we demonstrate how many people are impacted, both who are in substandard housing and the long wait that there is to get housing. And this, quite frankly, should not happen in Ottawa, should not happen in Canada. But this problem has existed for years, if not decades. It's not a problem that will be solved within the next few years. We do need a long-term strategy with all levels of government to solve this problem.
Thank you. Barbara.
Affordable housing is a big issue for the City of Ottawa, and we need to act now. The city has got strategies in place, and they have been reducing the number of homelessness numbers quite significantly. It still leaves 40% of renters unable to afford their rents. It still leaves those long waiting lists. We have the second largest concentration of social housing in the City of Ottawa in River Ward. When I talk about wanting to strengthen this ward in all of its parts, we need to take a serious look at that. We need to be willing to work and make Ottawa Housing as a corporation stronger. That's a corporation that is always working with one hand tied behind its back, and it's time that they've got the support that they need to move things forward. Thank you.
Barbara, I'm going to ask you, what do you mean by support? Give me an example.
They have been spending a lot of time rationalizing their stock. They've been getting rid of scattered units. They have been working on efficiencies. They still lack money. Very sad fact is that in Canada, we have no national housing strategy, and we tend to do housing by headline. Guess what? We have 150th birthday to celebrate. If you want to look when housing gets built, have a Pan Am Games. It is very sad. It does not sit with me on any level as a good way of doing housing. But you leverage what you've got. And maybe 2017 is our chance to leverage more.
The thing that scares me about 2017 is that in other cities, that's always been an opportunity to clear out the substandard housing and let people find whatever they can in other circumstances. But to put it, I take the point seriously. But it's time, I don't have a magic solution, but there are lots of players in this. Habitat for Humanity is building houses with people who need housing. They may have something to teach us. And certainly there are any number of other forms of cooperation that we can use to engage with the people themselves who need housing, the people who build houses, and the people who finance houses. Maybe it's the time for something the equivalent of a royal commission for 2017. Not a big $25 million Royal Commission, and that's all that they're spending on housing. They're not even spending that much on housing now as it is. But the kind of commission that brings the players together to talk solutions.
Thank you, John. And now, Jack.
I think we need to look at who's actually in the housing. Are there families, are there senior citizens? If there's 2 senior citizens in a 4-bedroom house, that doesn't make a lot of sense to me. So I think the city needs to get behind supporting the Carlington Community Health Center's expansion, coming up and growing residences for senior residences. I also think we need to focus on how can we help these people get out of the situation they're in and how can we help them stay out of the situation we're in. So I think we need to look at issues such as helping them financially plan for the future.
That's the end of this round. Any rebuttals? All right, I would like to actually just clarify on the rebuttal is if you hear one of your opponents say something that you would like to challenge or comment on, no personal attacks, please. You cannot use it though to just add another minute to your own answer. I'm not looking at anyone over here on this side. So our next question is on food security. Carlington is considered by local organizations and experts to be a food desert, meaning that many neighborhoods do not have easy access to groceries and other basic goods. How do we support the community in improving access to affordable and nutritious food? We're going to start with Mike.
Well, thanks for the question. Really interesting work is being done on this. There's 2 parts to this question. Number one, in parts of the ward, there's not a whole lot of commercial activity within the ward, with the exception of Maribel, Bayside, and Carlington. There's good chunks of the ward where there's no grocery stores close by. Outside the ward there is, but not within the ward. So that is certainly a challenge more up to the Hunt Club end. But certainly some interesting work is being done with sponsored work with OC Transpo and Loblaws, doing a community bus that's going out to some of the lower income areas, delivering fresh produce at costs, and it's very much a good community initiative. We need to keep looking at innovative, interesting ideas like this to solve the problem.
All right, Vanessa.
Well, we're back to opportunity again, and we're looking at if you allow for some commercial development on Maryville Road, then you're more likely to attract grocery stores. In addition to that, there is 30 outlets across the city on, I think it's called Good Food Box, where people are sharing and buying things together and helping each other. We need to do a lot more of that. The Ottawa Foundation has also awarded a grant of $125,000 for innovation in how we deal with this issue across the city. So I think that there is a dialogue, there's interest in this subject. I think we need to be talking to that foundation. They want answers, and I think we need them here desperately.
Riley.
I will never hesitate to advocate on behalf of River Ward, even if the issue is outside the city's jurisdiction. So if there are things that are provincial responsibility or federal responsibility, I will still advocate on your behalf. When the grocery store left Westgate Mall, that was a huge blow to our community because many people relied on that store for their groceries, and now we have a drugstore. They sell some, but obviously not the full complement what we need. I will advocate as best I can to retain those types of businesses that we rely on. I will do what I can to attract businesses to the community that we need. We have the mobile market truck, which is very successful in Caldwell now. But we need to bring in businesses to the community that the community needs. And I fully support community gardens, community-based gardens, which I think we still have opportunity for, but allow folks that don't have a lot of land to grow their own vegetables. Thank you.
All right, Barbara.
I sit on the board of the Ottawa Food Bank. I was its treasurer for 6 years. I want you to understand some really serious figures about the city. There's 49,000 people in River Ward, and there's 48,000 people receiving food across the city every single month. There are people who wanted to be here tonight, but they're making sandwiches so I can put them into emergency lunches for children. We have a wonderful ward of people who are willing to help in many different ways. We really need to make that work. Food initiatives in the city are now not only about emergency food, but about the quality of food. And that's an important factor. We need to support those initiatives. They are small budget items, but they make a significant difference. And growing vegetables, did you know you have the largest raised bed garden in Ottawa, and it's in Denver Valley?
Barbara, I'm gonna jump in here. You know the problem very well. Can you give us an example of what you can do to actually bring accessible food to the communities that don't have it now in River Ward?
You need to ask the good questions. What is it that you need? You know, the school curriculum changed. That put a lot of pressure on people who have low incomes because there's 2 activity breaks in a day. So it's not just about making the lunch now, it's about coping with those 2 activity breaks as well. You can deliver into low-income areas, into community houses, into the resource center. They will tell you what items will work.
Are you saying the city should deliver it to, I mean, as a councillor, what would you do to bring this food in to people who don't have it?
Well, I think the first thing you have to do is to raise the awareness about this. You know, we talk about food bank figures. We don't talk about all the other places people are having to go to get food. And some of it is as simple as more community gardens. And that is the best conversation a community can ever have. It is just very different. Our gardens are giving gardens.
Thank you.
It's for everybody.
All right, Don.
Well, in addition to what's Deborah done, there's also, I think, 100 plots available at the Carlington Health Center over on Maryville, which does meets the needs of local residents right in the ward. There are also ways of taking people out into the countryside to help collect food, particularly food which no one else seems to want to pick up. There is a market for that kind of thing. There are things we can do to encourage it.
Thank you. Now this is about not necessarily people with shortage of food, but people without access to a grocery store. So I understand there's a huge problem of people with not enough, and that's an issue, but I think the question is really, we have these food deserts. How do we attract food stores, food retailers to these areas so people can go themselves to buy their own goods? Jeff?
I'm not sure how many of you actually been to the Brewers Park Food Market. So it's pretty cool to get ostrich meat and lamb and all that kind of stuff. We have some great facilities and parks around our park. So it'd be great if we start to hold farmers markets around here so everyone has better access to it. I think it'd also be great if in extracurricular activities for youth, if we provided them with a healthy snack, most of them were after school. Fortunately, some are underfed, so it'd be great in the program it costs if we include that for children.
As a counselor, like a city program?
Yes.
All right, thank you. Michael?
Yeah, I'd like to get back to Westgate Shopping Center again. Actually, when it first opened, it put pressure on the existing IGA store on River Road, which is was located at Shelton, Maryland. When the Steinbergs closed down at Westgate and then it moved out, I think it was called. But anyways, the local authority didn't actually actively pursue another food store. In fact, look what's at Westgate now, there's a large kind of postal outlet there. That's not the appropriate sort of facility to put in a community that lacks a grocery store. So, I like to, someone should work with that mall and say, look, there's a huge demographic right at your doorstep, there's a need, why not be serving our need? And as well, if Maryville Road is developing into a true traditional Main Street environment that does have on-street parking all day long, that will encourage businesses to set up stores. Because it's the old, baseball movies, and if you build it, they will come. You have to make the community attractive for businesses to come to.
This is not a good city to use baseball analogies, but okay. That's it. That question. Any rebuttals before we move on? All right. All right. This is representing the community. We're moving now. We received a large number of questions related to voting candidates don't live in the ward. Now, if elected, how do you maintain strong engagement with community groups, local agencies, and residents to ensure that local issues are addressed? And what experience do you have working with community-level stakeholders? And we are going to start with Vanessa.
Okay, thank you for that. I think that the first thing I would do...
Actually, I'm going to also ask you to say whether you live in the ward, seeing as it's a question about whether you live in the ward.
Oh, I've lived in the ward for 10 years. I live near the IBM building on Riverside Drive. That's exactly where we moved to and we landed in Ottawa when the changed, and I thoroughly enjoy living in the ward. I would call in all of the presidents of the Ratepayers Association and form an advisory committee. Anything, any major issue, I would take to that joint advisory committee to give me the advice to rationalize resources across the ward. When we're in subject areas that are a little more tender, like social housing, my thought was and vision was to bring in all churches and have them all represented, because we need to better understand the dynamic in the community and who best to give us the insights than from that church sector. Thank you.
Riley.
As I said at the very beginning tonight, born and raised here in Riverward, there's no other place I would like to live. I plan to live here my entire life and die here. I think it's a great
Not
place.
soon, I hope.
Not soon. Let's get through the election first. My roots are here, and because my roots are here, I have a strong grounding in the community. I understand many of the issues. I think that gives me an advantage to hit the ground running when you elect me next week. I believe a elected representative needs to listen, needs to understand, needs to, when you go to make decisions at the council table, have that understanding and background, because you meet with your community frequently. You attend the community association meetings, you attend school council meetings, you broaden your horizons on who you meet and the frequency you meet. Because if you're not in the community, how on earth do you know the needs and the wishes of the community? You need to be consulting frequently, and that's what I did when I was a trustee. The neighborhood was neglected, and I wanted to build those roots from the very first day I got elected and go from there. Thank you.
Thank you, Anna. Barbara.
I don't live in the ward. I live in the west end of the city. I travel in here and have done every single day, most weekends, lots of evenings, for over 20 years. That's the generation of families, children and youth that I have had, along with others, a positive impact on. I believe that if you want to run for council, you want to be running where you believe you can have the biggest impact. I can tell you I've met 3 of my neighbours on my street in meetings outside in the city, because I'm never there, I'm always here. I've had to work very hard to bring in other resources, partnerships and friendships, both inside the ward and outside of the ward. I'm good at that kind of stuff. I know how to leverage, I know how to partner, and I certainly know how to get things done and have a positive impact.
Thank you. Don.
I do live in the ward, and first lived in the ward in 1969, although my life in the ward is not continuous since that time. Having been in political life for many, many, many years, consultation is not something strange to me. I don't pretend to have a lot of close connections with all of the community associations in the ward, but certainly I know the process, and I'm capable of listening rather than preaching.
Thank you. Jeff.
Yes, I do live in the ward with my spouse Vicky, who I get to try to convince to grow a family with.
No pressure.
No pressure. I do think it's important to live in the ward, to live and work the experiences every day. But that's not to say that someone outside of the ward can't do a great job. There are some great candidates up here, and I know they would represent you well.
Michael.
Oh yes, I lived in the ward, like I mentioned. I've been here since '57 as a child, and my mother used to live down the bar and did the streetcar downtown. But back then, this was that Lucy ward. This was not a river ward. It didn't exist back then. There's 2 items that I have on my platform. Like I mentioned, I was the president of the Community Association for 3 years, and during that time, I was also sitting on the board of the Federation of Citizens Associations, so I got to know a lot of the other community associations in Ottawa. And I think if I got elected, and I think if I got elected, it would be good to create a ward council of all the community association presidents to get their viewpoints. Because people in the neighborhoods know their area better than anyone else does. I don't know how to call that well, I don't know. Most people know they know. And as well, the councilor's newsletter I think would be a really good resource for all the community associations. A lot of community associations have a hard time getting their word out and having events in the community. So in the newsletter, again, yes, I was elected, I would allocate one page for community associations to advertise themselves, okay?
Thank you. And Mike?
I don't live in the ward, although this is such a crazy, big, diverse ward. The issues in this community are so different from the issues in Mooney's Bay, different again in Hunt Club. And the one thing I've learned, spending so much time out knocking doors, speaking to individuals in the ward, is that most of the serious issues that I've come across are front porch issues. People take me out of the front porch and they point and they say, you see that? I need the councillor to fix that. And it's the reason I love municipal politics, it's so incredibly personal. And because of my experience and the time I spent at City Hall, when you call and you say, come over to my house, I want to show you something, and when you say, do you see that? I need the city to fix that. I'll be able to contact the right people to actually get that done.
All right, thank you. Now, any rebuttals on that? Our candidates are so efficient and so good at asking your questions that not only are they not rebutting, they are way ahead of schedule, which is good news because I'm going to ask one more question, but just to let you know that we are going to go to the audience for questions, which is great, my favorite part. So as we're answering this last question, please, if you have a question, maybe line up in that center aisle and we will get a mic to you somehow. Or you can just scream it at them right from the front. You'll be right there. It'll be me. I will come over. All right. Last question that was given to us by the community that we have is on disability access. Yes, go ahead.
Sorry, John, because you do such a lovely job. I think we have 2 questions still to go.
I have one.
I have disability, and I have what kind of city council you are.
We decided to forget that last one and go to the on just overall. Well, we can answer that. I'll throw that in after. All right, fair enough. My guess is these questions will be much more interesting. So, on disability access, a very important issue. Carlington has one of the highest concentrations of disabled citizens in Ottawa, and accessibility is a very important issue. How we work with disabled and mobility impaired citizens to ensure that new and exciting businesses comply with the accessibility code. Do you feel that that code needs improvements? We're going to start, we're at the beginning again, starting with Riley.
First of all, I would like to immerse myself with the work that the advisory committee does at City Hall. There's an effective advisory committee that identifies disability concerns and issues, and certainly with the issues that exist here within River Ward that River Ward residents bring to my attention. We have issues like sidewalk reconstruction when sidewalks are done to make sure they're slanted to allow for wheelchair use. And we have a provincial law, the OADA, by 2025, all public buildings, whether it be schools, city facilities, other buildings, must be fully accessible. The challenge between now and then is to make sure there's enough money to address all the needs that exist. But also to ensure OC Transpo fleets can accommodate wheelchairs, that people don't have to rely on Paratranspo, which is very, at times, unreliable, very hard, the booking system, to make sure that we don't segregate members of our community, we incorporate them, everyone, and OC Transpo is certainly something that needs to be addressed as well.
Barbara.
Hi. Let's talk about persons with disability, because people are so much more than maybe the disability that they have to live with. We have to look at how people are trying to live their daily lives under very difficult circumstances. How do you take transit when you have a disability in this ward? It's extremely difficult. We have decimated bus routes in parts of this ward. We need to straighten that out, and we need to get them back. We need to understand that there is a wealth of talent that's being underused and underutilized in our volunteering, in our employment programs, and throughout the city altogether. I really hope that we can have some really serious conversations about bringing people into the picture where they have regularly been left out. Thank you.
John.
Well, I concur with all that's been happening at the provincial level to ensure that public buildings are accessible. Indeed, not only public buildings, but many private buildings as well. Businesses, churches, schools, and so on and so forth. That has been a matter of enormous progress. The needs of those who use the Paratranspo are obviously serious, most particularly because of the wait time. One cannot schedule a pickup or a trip without long wait in advance.
That's something I think that has to be addressed. No doubt there are many other issues. I'm interested in hearing what they are and looking for solutions with you.
Thank you. Jeff?
I think it's very important that every building should be accessible by all. I know that many disabled individuals are capped with their budgets, and they have a very strict way they can spend it, so I think we also need to focus on affordability of public transit for these individuals and how they can actually have access to everything around the city.
Thank you. Michael?
Actually, one of my first projects, research projects I did actually was for the region of Ottawa, Carlington on pedestrian safety and accessibility for people. And right in Carlington too, brand new projects that were finished in Carling actually failed my sort of understanding of accessibility. For example, right across from Macy's is the main entrance to Westgate Shopping Center. In the winter, there's no sidewalks going in there, so if you're going across that road in the winter, the snow clearing people who do Westgate pile the snow up right against the curb. So if you are walking there, or if you're in a wheelchair or some other assisted device, it's very, very dangerous to get in and out of Westgate Shopping Center. And yet, that was a brand new project, and that went through so many levels of approval, yet that was missed. How come? Of course you don't know.
I don't.
So anyways, we do need to ensure that we set high standards and then we make sure those standards are met.
Thank you. Mike?
Michael asks a great question because while developing this area gives me all sorts of nervous stress because this community is going to change so much over the next 10 years. One of the things that I look forward to is the ability with new development in public and quasi-public facilities like the ones he mentioned, where it can be built into the development. As businesses go through renovations, as new businesses are built, there's no reason why they can't be made to be accessible, but it's something we have to ask. That's the big difference.
Are there non-provincial laws now that make it accessible? So is that really an issue going forward? I know it was with Guestgate, but
it certainly is. They're very strict when it comes to public buildings. It's quasi-public buildings. There was a case just a couple of weeks ago about a new Scotiabank built downtown on the market that's not brand new, and it's not accessible to wheelchairs. And this in an area which is pretty generally accessible. So we have to ask and we have to enforce.
Thank you. Vanessa?
All right. Well, if you're disabled, you need housing, so we should work with the development community to have that paid for 100% through Section 37. That could be our #1 priority. We should be having our sidewalks cleared and properly the distance so that you can turn around in a wheelchair and get access to public transit. Those are very practical solutions. And I think that we could approach the local supermarkets to see if there's some sort of a transport system on food supply for the disabled through taxi cab chit to be able to accommodate the food access.
Great, thank you. This is one We're going out. Oh, we have to untape ourselves first. Vanessa's bag is on top of that, right? Okay. And then we have to raise the table. This is good. So this was really the hot seat. That was easy. Now we're with the real testers. I'm going to give a little warning. Also, time limit for all of you folks. No speeches. Actually, ask a question. Sir, go ahead, please.
Yes. Hello. I would like to know if any of you have given any thought to degrowth instead of growth. Degrowth. Degrowth is the opposite of growth. Thank you.
De-intensification, not
No,
what do you mean?
intensification, to scale back.
Yeah.
Because we are running out of oil, we are running out of resources.
All right.
And at one point, if we don't, I'm Latino, I can shout. if we don't plan how to stop this, we are going to get into the final crash without any planning. I don't want to make this a dissertation about big growth because that's not the place, but just want to know if you have given any thought to that.
How do we deal with our diminishing resources? We're going to start with Barbara.
Well, I think we have to work smarter. We can do a great deal about that if we look to environmental self-bacteria. Oh, sorry. I'm so sorry because I usually.
You are not Latino.
Sorry. So, We can do a lot of things on a very practical level ourselves here in the city. We need to clean up our act around garbage. Nobody mentioned that yet. Wow. There's a whole line, right? We need to understand that as residents and as a council, we hold the future of our children in our hands. That we're not making decisions for 4 years, we're making decisions for 20 years. I can't answer your question on population growth because I think people are attracted to wonderful places. That's why we have 49,000 people in Riverwood.
Don?
Well, degrowth is, sure, it's a big issue. And we see that in food, particularly. Some of you may have noticed the recent news reports about drought in California. And that can affect food supply in Ottawa. That's something we have to be concerned about. It's not just a matter of using what we have more efficiently. It's a question of making sure that many of our food sources and others, and sources of other supplies, other products, can come more locally. The 100-mile rule is a lot more than just about food.
Jeff?
That's a great question. I've given it a little bit of thought. That's why I propose to make Ottawa a city of innovation. I think we need to invest in renewable energy such as solar or wind rather than continuously investing in billion-dollar gas plants. And I think Ottawa should oppose the Energy East pipeline. We don't need to encourage the growth of natural gas being shipped abroad and us not even getting a benefit of it. So it would be great if we stopped that and then started investing and using our dividends from Hydro Ottawa to actually prepare for the future.
Michael?
Well, about 78 years ago, we had the Weber plan about actually making Ottawa a very small city. And that included actually removing the railway station from downtown because they wanted to do something called a distributed employment node system. Right now, Ottawa's downtown is so small we can't even supply movie theaters there anymore. You know? The National Capital Commission, the federal government, actually, they created this template for us of a green belt and satellite cities. And the city was supposed to be small in the core, and then we're supposed to have 3 outside cities, and people were supposed to kind of like live and work there. It was based on the British Garden City model. The problem is the NCC has stopped communicating with the City of Ottawa for many decades now. And it would be helpful if they got back into the regional planning, discussion with us, because it would be helpful if they would work with the city instead of operate sometimes and do their own little regional plan, and the City of Ottawa does their little plan, Gatineau does their plan. We need a coordinated plan for the entire region on both sides of the river. And get back to understanding why we have a green belt, why we have satellite cities, why it's not working, and how we can make it work and have a more compact, livable lifestyle.
I think it's a very interesting question. The reality is that the city continues to grow. And certainly what I'm hearing from people at the doors is, their question to me is, how do we manage the growth that's going to happen in this community? So that's certainly the biggest challenge I think in front of us, is how we're going to manage the growth.
I concur. I'm sorry, we have an aging population. Let's hope that everybody wants to retire in Ottawa and we'll have wonderful economic multiplier. We can use all that downtown office space that everybody's vacating and maybe gentrify the downtown core and make it pedestrian friendly. And with an LRT system, this could be a really vibrant area once more in the City of Ottawa.
Thank you. Interesting question. Interesting answer.
Joanne, can I just...
Oh, I'm sorry, Ron. I apologize. I thought we started there. Sorry. I'm sure there's another interesting answer coming up.
I honestly haven't thought too much about degrowth. It is an interesting question. More focus on smart growth. We've seen communities south, and I agree with Mike regarding, this is a city of 1 million people. We continue to grow. We will continue to grow. But we need to grow smartly. So when you see Finley Creek built, and you see Barrhaven expanded, and when you see Riverside South community be built, but they don't have rapid public transit, and you see Bank Street and the Airport Parkway and Riverside and Prince of Wales backed up at rush hour, that has negative impact on Riverward. So it's about smart development. Lansdowne Park is abysmal. That's a good example of how not to do it. We can do it right. LeBreton Flats is going to be developed over the next few decades. We have a chance to do it right.
That was everyone, right? All right, thank you. Sorry about that. Sorry.
My big question is, what can you do for me? Because I fall through all your cracks. I didn't choose to go on disability. It happened to me. It's a crippling chronic disease, as well as a spinal cord injury. The transportation around where I live is fantastic. However, the buses are being canceled every day, trip after trip, sometimes 6 trips a day. Why are they being canceled? How come you can't stop that? I want to see that stopped, because the 14 is my main route for me to get anywhere, including my doctors. The food source, switching Shoppers Start Mart to another food source, Food Basics is around the corner. Okay, I don't even have a car and I can get there with my disability. Putting another store down there is taken away from the other stores that already serve me greatly. Okay, there's the Loblaws, there's Walmart, even if you don't like them, I can get to them. Takes me 3 buses, but I get there. All right, bus service should be improved that way too. I shouldn't have to take 3 buses to get from this building over to Walmart. All right. I just live up the street on Carlington. All right. Housing. I'm living outside of community housing right now. My rent goes up every year by 2%, 3%, okay? My ODSP goes up 1%. Hydro goes up more than that. I only have one source of communication with the outside world because I can't afford a phone. So I use the internet. My internet just went up $25 a month. Thanks very much, right? And on top of that, there's a drug dealer in the building where I live. I'm fighting today for heat because the heating system in my building doesn't work. And the landlord thinks I'm a bitch because every year we go through the same thing 8 years running. All right, so I'm just a miserable human being, but I'm struggling every single day to even get out and do things. What can you do for me? See, this is the kind of person that's living in this neighborhood that you don't see because I don't own a home. I don't have a car. I don't feel important to you people. All right, I've come to these community association meetings, and they wouldn't even listen to me when I came to them. All right, what can you do for me?
So, we heard from Margaret. She has fixed income. All her costs are going up. The Route 14 does not appear reliable. What, as a councillor, can you do to help people like Margaret? Start with Dawn.
I wish I knew. I don't pretend to, but I know that if we talk, we can work towards solutions. There are many groups in the city that are prepared to help. Some are very capable, some of them need more resources, some of them you have to find out about so you can connect them. I should be very happy to sit down with you and explore the situation and make whatever phone calls are necessary to get you on the right track.
Jeff.
I appreciate you coming forward and actually sharing your story. You're right, it's an issue we don't actually hear often. That's kind of why I created Build the Platform. I want to bring forward your agenda, not my agenda. I can promise to lower taxes, I can promise to do all these glorious things, but in the end, that's not what you want. I want to do things for you, I want to work for you. If you don't mind, I'd like to come give you a hug.
Please no, says Margaret. All right. Michael, she doesn't need a hug.
I have a crushed disc, you'd only hurt me.
She needs other stuff. Michael.
There were many points you brought up, and I'm sorry that I didn't get all of them down. Hydro, I know that the province of Quebec has actually been trying to sell hydro cheaper to Ontario than Ontario generates it right now, and that's one of my campaign goals, is try to lobby the province to try and get access to that. I believe Cornwall is already getting hydro from Quebec now as well. And if that's the case, then we can lower our hydro bills and take some of the pressure off yourself. I travel a lot, like doing my lecture and monitoring stuff, and I noticed many countries in Europe, in the rural areas and in evenings, they go to much smaller buses. They also go to a bus that's sometimes privately operated, and it's it's a little bit more than a bus, but far cheaper than a taxi. That might be an option that we can pursue. In fact, I remember once we used to have something called teletransport. Does anybody remember that?
Teletransport, I remember.
Well, anyway, they used like small camper vans, and they were operated on Bell's Corners and places like that, and you phone them up, and they came and picked you up, and it was the same, I believe it was the same transit fare as a regular bus, or maybe a dime more. Maybe we should be bringing things like that for evening service. And regarding any drug dealer, well, let's call the police and get the guy out of there, you know?
All right, thank you, Michael. Mike?
Thank you. It sucks to be you. And you are really underrepresented here tonight because most of the people don't have the issues that you have. And in fact, the reality is, for council, most councillors think about people like you last. In spite of the fact, and I've been telling people across the ward this, they don't realize what a high percentage of people on social assistance live in this ward, because on the surface it looks like such a prosperous area. So what can be done for you? Because this is not just a question for you. Most people should be asking, what's in this for me? And certainly one of the issues is one of mobility for you and getting trapped where you live, which is not always advantageous. So having a rent subsidy where you can then move if it doesn't suit you, either because the building's not good enough or because there's risk involved or because of lack of access to OC Transpo, having that mobility would help you a great deal.
But Mike, there's a shortage of rental housing. Where are people going to move to when her disability benefits only increase 1% a year?
Well, again, talking about instead of building additional bricks and mortar for having the city building public housing, give people who would normally go into public housing and are on the waiting list this transferable subsidy. And working with the developers to make sure that there's sufficient stock to do this. Certainly from the rental people I've talked to, they say if there is a market for it, they will build it.
Vanessa?
Well, this is one of the reasons why I wanted to do this, because you need to be understood, you need to be recognized, you have dignity, you should be given and shown respect, and for whatever reason, it hasn't happened. And it's wrong, and it's disgraceful. And I think a city councillor can analyze situations, can meet with social service agencies, can see what your reality is, and bring the council out to the Bellevue development. Bring the council here. Raise the awareness. Be a champion. Be a voice for the people. I think that's what I absolutely have a desire to do that. That's why I'm running.
Riley?
I have never asked, and I never will ask anyone whether they vote, whether they support me. That's irrelevant. The fact is, we are here to serve. Thank you very much for bringing your issues to the forefront. Councillor needs to listen. I don't have all the solutions to the concerns that you raise, but it's also to how best can I link you to what city services exist? How best can I link you to other services that exist? We've heard chronic issues with OC Transpo in this campaign. Not just the Route 14, the Route 3, that has to be addressed right away. If you have chronic issues with buses not showing up, that has to be addressed. That will be addressed. But councillors think that perhaps it's great to talk to a room of 300 people. It's just as valuable to have a conversation with one person.
Thank you. And finally, Barbara.
I talk about working smart as a councillor. And this is one instance I'll give you. There's been some very good work done with landlords, bad landlords. Trust me, a bad landlord is a bad landlord is a bad landlord. It's not going to change. One of the most effective ways of doing that has been to work with city bylaw. And it's been working with residents together with city bylaw, and there have been significant changes up in Cedarwood because of that. You talk to bylaw at the city, and they say, we are stretched to the max. We love doing this kind of stuff, and we know it's effective, but we can't do the scale of work that we should be doing. It's only one thing. You will never hear me say that I support the rates for ODSP or Ontario Works. You will hear me say I support a living wage, and you will know that I'm going to try to be in your corner, and everybody else who is struggling like you in this world.
Barbara, how will, supporting bylaw services, it's true, how will that help Margaret's problems? I mean, bylaws isn't going to go into OCH and I don't know, do what, but...
No, but bylaw has worked very effectively with residents who have been organised. There are groups in the city that are working to organise.
I found Yelp works faster.
What's that?
Yelp.
Yeah, I would agree, but...
no, I've had experiences with bylaw, and they really aren't as effective as you think. But I wrote something about my landlord 3 weekends ago on Yelp, and within 24 hours, the manager of the area was at my door begging me for forgiveness. So.
Bylaw plus Yelp, that might be our answer.
And my apologies if that wouldn't be what you think would work.
But thank you. Thank you very much.
I actually have quite a list, but I'll try to keep it short because I know I'm timed. First of all, what candidates don't see are the invisible people here. How many people here actually have to worry about how they're going to pay their rent or their mortgage? How many people actually rent houses as I do from an absentee landlord? I do most of the work myself on a limited income. So there's a large invisible population that I don't think, I'm sorry to say this because I don't know you personally either, I don't think any of you have a real idea about the invisible neighborhood that we have in Carlington Community Association and in this area, in this ward. Let's look at Albion Road and Ledbury, one of the poorest areas in our city. It's equal point of what is going on percentage-wise with Bayshore neighborhood. It's got the highest population of new Canadians, the highest population of single moms, the highest population of children from 0 to 9 years old, the highest population of people where 30% of their income that they do get goes to rent. We talk about housing, 5 years, 7 years. I'm sorry, I talked to people last week in Ledbury that have been waiting 12 years for housing. 12 years. And we're not talking 10 families, we're talking hundreds of families. One of the things I heard tonight was, sorry? Oh, I have to ask my question. Oh, golly. Okay. I really believe that jobs, housing, youth are all interrelated. And I haven't seen anyone address the interrelation of that, because we know that statistically, I'm going to try to get a question out of this, okay? I know that statistically, if you have those issues solved, you're not going to have the gang problems. I live in Carlington. I heard someone say earlier, Muslims. I don't have Muslims who broke the windshield of my car. They were white kids, 12 to 15, between midnight and 2 in the morning.
What's your question? Yeah.
Thank you very much. My question is, how are they going to do something about these problems? Because I heard someone say, to quote, this is not a problem that we can't solve in the next 5 years. It's a long-term problem. I've heard that answer for the last 3 municipal elections. We can't deal with it in 5 years. We'll deal with it within 5 years. This is now 3 municipal elections later. The problems still are there. That's my question.
So the question is, a lot of interrelated social problems, jobs, youth disenfranchisement. What are you going to do in this term of council? Who are we starting with? We're starting with Jeff. Jeff. Next
Very good question, very good points. There are many things we can do, but we need to try and figure out what will actually work. You did mention gangs in places of social housing like Ledbury. I personally think we need to kick, if they don't have a gang affiliation, I think we need to kick them out. We need to play hardball with them. They may need social housing, but they should be able to profit off drugs and still live in social housing when there are families that need these houses. Job creation for youth is very important. There are many areas around Ledbury that do offer jobs, but they're very low paying and very low hours, so you can't actually afford to live with. So if we can, I know there's redevelopment of Bank Street right now. I feel like if we redevelop that area, I feel like it will create more jobs.
Thank you. Michael.
Well, it's a multifaceted question that has many different parts to answer. I know a little bit about Carlington, having grown up here since '57, and a lot of my friends went to social housing. I didn't know that, though, because I lived in a regular house and we were all friends. I went to Gowling up to grade 8, and we all mixed together. One of the things communities can do, though, is through neighborhood watch. I find that when you have really everyone, all the citizens on the street are engaged in protecting their community. For one thing, they get to know each other, they look out for each other, and that's one of the first steps in creating that sense of community. It's simply looking out for each other and just helping, wanting to make your community better. Like I mentioned before, bringing in a library to sort of allow some of the children to have a place where they can study, in a quiet place, and there's no magic bullet. These are all like little building blocks in order to make a successful community. And when they're missing,
Mike.
Very big question. Really, it comes down to how do you solve the issue of poverty, because a lot of those things are interrelated with poverty. And the answer is you can't solve all those issues in one term of council. What you can do is chip away at the various issues, working with community associations and the experts that are already in the field, and try to peel back layer after layer and do the best you can. I think there's no easy answer to this. It's just hard work over a long period of time to make things better for as many people as you can.
Vanessa?
I don't think there is a magical solution. I think it is hard work. First, we need to diagnose. So we need the council on the ground in this ward, in that area, and we need to say what's really going on and honestly assess it. And then we have to figure out what can we do with all the assets that we own in the city, in this ward. How can we better deploy them to serve the interests of the people of this ward? We have severe crime issues. We have severe risks for kids joining gangs. We need to do an intervention now. And the only way we're going to make that happen is it's got to be the number one priority for the new council. For the first time in history, let's deal with the issue properly. And with the police service, I think they're doing a fine job. It's a thankless job, but a fine job.
Riley?
We have to come to terms that we have problems. Sometimes the community is at odds about what the problems are, but we have to admit that here in Carlington, we certainly have challenges that we have to face. And I can't stress enough that the city and the school boards do have strong partnerships that they can adhere to and work with. Identify kids that are at risk, and again, ask the school boards, how can the city get involved to assist Boys and Girls Club, the Ottawa Police, Community Association. It's not, we can't expect whoever you elect as councillor to solve this problem. It's an entire community, entire team effort, as Vanessa said, pulling together all the assets that are at our fingertips to address. And again, I want the City of Ottawa to focus on Carlington, to have summer job fairs here where we hire local people for local work, revamp the Business Improvement Authority within Carlington, and again, focus on how can we employ local people for various jobs.
And Barbara?
Hi. I work in low-income communities every single day and have done for over 20 years. I chair a coalition of community houses, 15 of them, all across the city, all in areas of true poverty. They're community hubs and they're very vibrant, and we need more of those, and we need to support them better. Let me tell you about social housing areas. You know, you kind of see those people in those houses. Well, those people in those houses, if they're townhouses, have 3 times the population of children than you and I have on our streets and in our apartment buildings. And that number, this is the big one, it doesn't change over time, because the way the rules are about social housing, as a family moves out, a new family moves in. The demographics are a little bit different. Can we not do more recreation directly? Can we not put more services for children exactly where we know where they're needed? I don't think it's too difficult to do.
Thank you. And Don?
I'm not quite sure where the questioner has gone, but I would like to have the opportunity actually to speak again with the questioner. Because sometimes we can't wave, well, we never can wave magic wands. We can listen, we can hear. But one of the things we have to ask is, what can you contribute? Maybe your talents are not being appreciated. Maybe there's some way we can help you work with other people in society, and you in return will get repaid. Maybe it'll work, maybe it won't. But certainly it begins with one-on-one discussion.
All right, I know you're going to ask a very succinct question now.
My question comes to you from a low-income mother who lives in the Caldwell area, who has seen over time things reduced and cut back for her and her family. She's now aging and looking towards the services that will be required as a senior citizen. She's had continual roadblocks come up over time, things like user fees, bus cuts, all that kind of thing. And she recognizes that there's work to be done and that people need help. But what she wants to know is, what are you going to cut in order to keep the promises that you're making to support the programs and the ideas that have been brought forth here tonight that you do support?
Start with Michael.
Well, since my platform is on fiscal responsibility and improving governance, I think I'm actually going to be saving money, so I should be able to find extra funding for things like that. So that's that answer. But you know, you really got to work with these people. You have to go and talk to them, and like I said, like having a work council, but even going beyond that, have like maybe an all-day session and get the viewpoints of a complete diversity of these groups, because sometimes, you know, they even have their own solutions that are, you know, they thought about it. And so it's good to listen to everybody.
Mike?
Great question. One of my big concerns, it's been a number of years since amalgamation, we need to go through a process of universal program review, because so many programs, even the best program, has a shelf life where it ceases to be as effective as it once was. And we need to start the process once again of going through the programs the city provides, see what is working, what's not working, and let's phase out the programs that aren't working. But you know, certainly when it comes to the most vulnerable in our society, I don't think that there's any room to cut at all. I think we need to protect those people. That's how we're judged as a community, not how we treat the richest, how we treat the most vulnerable.
Thank you. Vanessa?
I think that it's really important that we say that publicly. Are we going to make a difference? We're not just going to talk about it. You know, the government, we're uploading costs at $5 million on a stepped-up basis for the next 4 years. We have an opportunity, it's maybe once in history, to do the right thing. Now's the time. We have the money. We need the will to actually tackle the very difficult social issues in the city.
Riley?
I don't plan to cut core services that residents rely on, including social services. I'm also not making big spending promises because I think that's irresponsible. I think how we finance capital projects needs to be looked at. I would like us to save capital dollars in successive budget years, and when you've saved up the capital dollars that are necessary for a project, then you spend it. When you have the money, you spend it, not continue to put the city into debt.
Barbara?
I think there's two things I'd like to say. Is we have $1 billion budget for social services, and we are going to upload $50 million worth of services back to the province. It's going to give us a lot of choices in the next term of council. The other one is which side...
Actually, I think we're uploading $5 million a year for the next 4 or 5 years. Barbara, you have to stop the time, but
okay.
I'm not sure it's 50, so I'm just wondering where that number comes from.
Well, that's a number I've heard, so if I'm wrong, my apologies. Maybe we'll have to make it 50. Okay, yes, we're uploading. Right?
We're uploading. We're going to use that money, social services.
Uploading means we have choices. I don't believe that we need to cut. The other thing is that we need to work as a city and decide what side of the equation we're on. As a city, we need to support people who are vulnerable. We're always going to have people who need city support. But we need to move people to employment, because when people are employed and when they can get on buses, we then are contributing to a tax base, and we desperately need that.
Thank you. Don?
Like the others, I'm not prepared to cut services for the most vulnerable. If we have to increase taxes beyond the 2% to continue with services, certainly we have to look at that seriously. But cutting is out of the question.
Finally, Jeff.
To be frank, I think it's hard to say that nothing will be cut. I don't think it's realistic. We definitely do need to provide the core services to an individual. But before cutting a service like that, I think it would be responsible of us to look into other things we can cut around the city that are necessary. Or actually hold a review of the program to see what we can do for that program to make it better.
Thank you. Now, obviously, we're not going to get to all of our questions. We're going to try to get to as many as possible by a few rapid rounds of questions, all right? So answers much shorter, 20 seconds. How about 20? Here, 20 seconds then. Here we go. We're going to, who's going to be first? Michael, you're going to be first. No, actually, Mike's going to be first. All right, go ahead.
Hi, my name is Bernadette Smart, and I live here in Carlington. And my question is about transit, specifically LRT. And specifically, do you support phase 2 and phase 3 as they're planned right now? If not, what changes would you make? This is a very important issue to me. I have friends and family who live all over the city, and it would be nice if the LRT made it possible to visit them. Thanks.
Great question.
Can we do this as a yes or no?
Sure.
And just for quicker, yes, I support phase 2 and phase 3.
Great. Vanessa?
Yes, I do, providing that it's a $3 million cost to the phase 2, and we need to get 2/3 of the money from the provincial and federal governments. We have a verbal assurance from the province, and we have no such assurance from the federal government. I think it's imperative we get those formal funding agreements in place before we put the shovel in the ground.
Perfect.
Other than that, I agree.
Okay, 20 seconds. Riley?
Totally agree on the funding, so I won't repeat it. Definitely in support of phase 2 and phase 3, but I want to see all the options before I commit. We definitely have to expand the O train southbound to help with congestion in River Ward, but we definitely need to go further east and further west with our rail lines.
All right, Barbara?
Hi, yes, I support the second phase of light rail. It's very good for River Ward, for people in River Ward. The one thing I don't want to happen is that all the other transit issues get taken off the table because we're concentrating too much on LRT.
Tom?
Yes, to phase 2 and 3.
Jack?
Ottawa's falling far behind in public transit, so yes, I do support 2 and 3.
And Michael?
No. We can actually supply phase 2 and 3 by redistributing our buses, using them different. We need to actually send people to the business parks where 50% of the people work and are not being served right now. We can do that cheaper and quicker, okay, using other ways.
Thank you. Excellent answers. All right. Next question.
All right, another transit question. How do you feel about Uber?
Vanessa?
I'm a free market gal. I think that we have to get with the program. I mean, we'll have to have a phase-in because somebody's invested a lot of money in medallion systems. Totally in favor of the free market system. Uber should be allowed to operate in the city.
Riley?
I'm an economist. When you add to the marketplace, price normally goes down, so consumers like that. But before we jump ahead, taxis are regulated for a reason, public safety. So I'm open to the concept of expanding how people move about, but I want to make sure we have some regulation in place.
Barbara?
Buyer beware. I think you need to be very careful what you're getting into. There's big liability issues. Uber will always tell you that they are the connecting people. That's what they do when they do it well. But what it is telling us is there's a big issue and there's a gap and we're not responding to it well enough. We need to do that.
Excellent. Don?
It seems that the taxi industry needs the competition, but we all need the security of a safe system. And so that means let's all follow the regulations.
And Jeff?
I agree with Vanessa. Free enterprise is great, so why not have them join us?
And Michael?
Well, I think we need a level playing field between the existing taxi operators and the proposed Uber. Should we, for example, buy back taxi licenses and then issue yearly permits instead, to make it fair?
Great range of answers. Thank you. Good question. Oh, I'm terrible. I forget where I started. Sorry, Mike.
I think there needs to be more competition in the taxi industry. I'm just not completely sold on Uber, but some variation may be entirely possible.
Sure.
There's a perception that the current council is in debt to the development industry. In many cities, it is illegal to accept donations from either businesses or unions. And that's not because anybody really believes that a councillor is going to sell his vote for a $750 donation. It has to do with the massive amount of total money. Would you commit yourself to changing the law to ban business and union donations?
Man after my own heart. Riley?
Simply no, but the maximum that they can give now is $750. I would support bringing that down to $100. This is a democratic process. They are allowed to be engaged in this process. They can donate. Anyone in this room can donate as well. But for unions or corporations, they should not be giving $750. It should be $100.
What about for individuals? Also bring it down or keep it at $750?
Individuals, people who should be donating to campaigns are the people who live in River Ward. And it should be kept at $7.50.
Barbara?
Hi. My campaign is self-driven. I don't accept corporate donations and I don't accept union money. I think it's working very well for me as a principal, and I think it would be not a bad idea to carry that forward.
John?
I'm not accepting corporate or union donations either, but I am encouraging, I think people are not used to making a lot of political contributions, and somehow or other we have to make people realize that it's the people that get what they pay for.
Thank you. Jeff?
I do support the ban of donations from union groups and businesses. It's not the companies or unions that vote, it's the individual.
And Michael?
I think in general, in principle, that's fair, but at the same time, how do you place all boards of directors who want to give donations as individuals as opposed to being members of the company?
I'm not sure that gentleman said individuals can give, just whether you be supporting banning corporate and union donations.
Yes. Okay.
All right.
The answer is no. I think that corporations and unions pay taxes. They have a vested interest, number one. And number two, I think it's just too easy to maneuver around with having, as Michael said, having the board of directors make the donation. So I don't see it as being practical.
And Vanessa?
Well, I'm very public about it. You'll see it in my write-up. I don't take money from developers or corporations or unions. I want to be an independent voice. I want to be objective. I want to represent your interests. I don't want anybody telling me how to think on your behalf.
Unfortunately, our last question, I'm sure it's going to be a great one.
We were just talking about ethics. You are being elected as our leaders, not just for the next 4 years, but your decisions, your actions, and your inaction will affect our future. The City of Ottawa has an air quality and climate change management plan that came to be in May. When you will be accepted as our representative to the city, one of the first things you have to do is divide up the money and your priorities. How will you ensure that climate change is a priority in your work with City Hall?
Very popular question, Barbara.
Okay, so I attended the unveiling of a report that the Resource Centre's put together. Okay, it was around the Canadian Index of Wellbeing. I expect the city to adopt that, and that is the lens that we're going to look through, because what we're going to understand now is that there are repercussions and costs, not only our health costs, but there are repercussions and costs to cities who will not forward think.
Thank you, John. 20 seconds.
Yes, it's one of the biggest issues I think that we face as a society. We have to address it. If we don't, we perish.
Jeff?
Climate change is very important. It does need to be addressed. So I think we need to change the culture, and people need to start realizing the effects their day-to-day decisions have on the environment.
Michael?
I just want to bring up an example of city policy not fulfilling its goals. Worst fare in Ottawa was measured at Carlington, Kirkwood, and the Queensway. The city policy states that old folks' homes, senior citizen residents, and schools should not be located there. Yet, when that study was released, they proved senior citizen residents we should not be doing those sort of things.
Mike?
Not something that's been raised a great deal with the doors. I think climate change is certainly an important issue, but not something I've given a great deal of thought of in this context.
Okay, Vanessa?
I think we can be very practical about this. I think as a city we have tons of buildings. We should be doing energy retrofit. That's something that's doable. We have an obligation to society to do the right thing and set the tone. I think we can also then appeal to Ottawa Hydro and up their energy conservation programs. We need to set the example for the people.
Riley?
Detailed platform on my website will do more justice than 20 seconds, but certainly the costs of inaction are far greater than the costs of actually doing something at the city level. This is high on my list. We can continue to convert city vehicles to electric, buses to biodiesel, green roofs, solar panels on city buildings, huge promotion campaign. It doesn't have to cost tons and tons of money, but we have to admit it's a problem and we have to make it a priority. Thank you.
Thank you. We are going to now, unfortunately we don't have time to answer these questions, but we're going to record your questions. So come up so everyone can hear it, and we're going to ask you guys to write in your answers. I think that's what we're doing anyway. So we're just going to hear these questions. Also, I'm sure these lovely people would love to hang around later and also talk to you some more one-on-one. So just your question for the record.
I'm asking this on behalf, or as both a Carlington resident and as a board member on the Carlington Community Health Center. It's a two-part question very quickly. First of all, how will you interact with community associations and what we can expect in Carlington? And then the second one is, what is your position on the health hub project that you know that the CCHC is planning?
Yeah, important question. Thank you. Go ahead, sir.
My next question is for the about the social housing and about in building making new unit, but the thing is that there is no not working done in the unit. So how would the city accommodate all? Even though like smoke.
Smoking units, right? Yeah. About smoking, social housing. Social housing, Ottawa OCH banned smoking in units. And are you a smoker, sir? Yeah.
I think it would be best to
have some smoking units in the.
accommodate all.
To all, to do it all. All right. Issue is smoking in OCH, right? To be able to, what do you do for some folks who do smoke when smoking is banned in the whole building? How do you have some units or how do you have some place for people who do? Thank you very much. Sir.
I represent the Carlington area, and my question is for Barb. Barb, I would like to see security and safe in my community. I volunteer in my community, and I would like to see a big change. And Barbara, if you're elected, please do something for our community.
Thank you. Specifically for Barbara Carroll, but I'm sure if all of you would like to answer that question later, people would like to see your answers.
Just since it hasn't been really brought up, but what do you see are the problems with the waste management system that we have? I'm not one of these people that's really crazy about maggots in my green bin and wanting the whole system abolished, but where do you see improvements? And you can't just say, make it weekly garbage removal, because we don't have this magic hole outside of the city that we can dump everything in, and we can't keep trucking it to New York State. So what are your realistic solutions?
Excellent question and an important issue for a lot of people. Sir, last one of the evening.
Wow. Kudos to all of you, first of all. I just retired after 40 years, an executive and professional life in Canada and overseas. We talked about affordability a lot tonight, those of us on the receiving end and those of us on the giving end. My question, and I don't want to bristle anyone here, unions and first responders. One of the big draws on our budget, police force, fire, others. My question of you is, how do you feel about 6 and 7% increases in these salaries driven largely by unions? And what do you see and how do you see yourselves stepping into the fray and being prepared to show some, I guess I'll use the word, spine to face off with these ever-increasing union charges?
Hey, important question. Arbitration in emergency services is a very big deal. It sees costs going up way above, cost of living. Very important issue. So please answer that. I'm sorry, ma'am. Did you have a question?
Yes, not surprising that the raise is the snowplow. We have at the beginning of the season. I'm just a resident. Homeowner. At the beginning of the season, I guess the first snowfall, we see them shaving the streets. Sometimes, actually, I have even probably on my cell phone, took a picture of the asphalt. I can see the asphalt is dry, and then the truck is coming. And then when we have real snow, the side roads, side streets are really dangerous. So something that have to be done about it. And then you're cleaning, and the snowplow is going, and they block because I have a contractor, he comes in town, he comes he comes like twice sometimes, and yet they block me, so I want to drive out, take my grandchildren, I can't. And also the dog owners, nobody raised it, but some people leave the dropping there, they have to do something, I asked for camera and so on. Okay,
That's it, all right.
I can.
Can't understand right now, I'm gonna take that opportunity to go. I'm gonna close, all right. Those are fantastic questions, the real gamut of every issue, local and citywide. We are a little bit late, but considering the room is still packed, I don't think people mind too much. We're gonna go to closing statements. We're gonna go the opposite way that we went for opening statements, and we're gonna start with Vanessa. 1 minute for closing statements, so please leave us with a few words.
All right. Okay. So, why did I decide to run for the position of the River Ward Councillor? Well, I really care about people. I think I have some skills that I can lend to the very complex challenges that we face in the ward. I really want to devote myself on a full-time basis to resolving those challenges. I'm a professional accountant and I have been for 31 years. I've been a city manager in British Columbia and Ontario. Most recently, I just retired from the University of Ottawa Faculty of Medicine. I handled all their money. I understand how to handle large organizations, complex issues, and I want to devote myself to this community. So please vote for me. Thank you.
Thank you. Mike.
Thank you very much all for coming out. I'm very passionate about municipal politics. I enjoyed my time greatly working at City Hall, albeit as a backseat driver, never in the front seat. And that's why I'm hoping to get the promotion from you folks to move me into the front seat and be an actual decision maker there. This, as I said at the beginning, is a job interview. I hope you heard enough tonight from somebody to really give your support. If you have any further questions of me, please feel free to stay afterwards and ask me, or reach me through my website. I'd be more than happy to answer.
Michael.
Okay, as a teacher and a researcher, I'm a person who believes in using local knowledge in decision-making and planning. No one knows more about your area than you do. Therefore, local knowledge must be used as part of how we design and manage our city. In that regard, I'd like to create a costing committee for city purchases. Many of the items which the city purchases appear to be far too expensive. For example, did you know a park bench costs $2,800, or sand for play structure costs $33,000, or that the transit station at Algonquin College costs over $200 million? By establishing a costing committee of people from a diverse section of the community, we should be easily able to come up with a more common sense and reasonably priced alternatives than what is currently happening at City Hall. Be smart, pay less. This can mean lower taxes. My door will always be open to you because we work for you. Never forget that. You are in charge, not the politicians, city staff, or various outside consultants.
Thank you. Thank you, Michael. Thank you. Yeah.
Hello again. My name is Jeff Kosick. That's K-O-S-C-I-K. I'd like to thank my fellow candidates for coming out and the Carlington Community Association and the Carlington Community Health Centre for organizing such a great event. I stand for fiscal responsibility, creating meaningful environment change, and making Ottawa a city of innovation. If elected, I'll be an open, transparent, and inclusive city councillor. In order to do that, I want to do things right starting from day one. That is why I've created Build the Platform. Build the Platform is about collecting the ideas and concerns from you, the residents of the River Ward, so that together as one, we have an agenda to take to City Hall. And the advanced polls are on Monday, October 27th. Vote for me, Jeff Kosick, to be your city councillor, to elect a leader with a fresh perspective, and a leader who will listen to you to realize a better River Ward. Thank you.
John.
Well, it's a pleasure to see all of you out tonight and to hear, I think, a very lively discussion. And also, where you were able to bring your concerns. I take the perspective that we live in a great city. We live in a great ward. Not everyone's getting the services we need, but we can do better. And because I knew I couldn't say it all in 1 minute or 2 minutes or even 3 or 4, I wrote it out. And you can find my little essay over on the table. I invite you to read it, particularly the couple of initiatives about celebrating 150 years of Confederation.
Thank you, John. Barbara.
When you make the decision to run for councillor, What you're really saying is that you're going to make a big commitment and a serious commitment to the people of the ward. I will always put people first. It's the way I work every day. It's the way that I have always worked and would want to work with you. I'm always going to be listening to what you have to say, and it's your priorities that will go with me to City Hall. I know how to work effectively, and I know how to work smart. And I hope that you will consider me as your candidate at the River Ward in this election. Let's put people first. It's really important to do that. Thank you.
Thank you. And finally, Ryan.
Thank you all for coming tonight. It's very important. You take your civic duty important, and I appreciate you coming and asking some very good questions. River Ward needs a strong, community-based advocate. I will be prudent with your tax dollars. I will maintain city core services. I have been active and involved in this community, my home community, for the last 20 years, including as a school board trustee for 7. A leader needs to listen, a leader needs to be accountable, and a leader needs to be accessible. We can continue to address the River Ward issues together, and this ward will continue to shine in the years ahead. I ask for your vote on October 27th. Please send me to City Hall to work on your behalf. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's give them a round of applause. So before we go, just to remind, a couple of reminders. One, advance poll. Last advance poll is this Saturday for the vote on Monday the 27th. I should know that. I hope no editors are in the room listening to me right now. I wanted once more to thank the Carlington Community Association and the Carlington Community Health Center for organizing this debate. It's great. What a fantastic event. Look at you all. You're not watching the Sens home opener. You're out here participating in democracy. And thank you all, not just for being here on the hot seat, but for running. That is what makes a better city. Thank you all. Good luck to you all.
Thank you for listening, and please don't forget to vote on Monday, October 27, 2014. This report was brought to you by Carlington Community Association.